What is up, you guys? I'm back with a great film again, and today's movie starts with a loud knock outside of James's house. He gets a flash of his future, his landlord telling him that he only has until the end of the day to pay rent before he kicks him out. James opens the door and re-experiences his vision as he speaks to the owner. After his angry landlord leaves, James starts to monologue to himself. He explains that everything anybody sees has already happened, but people don't realize this. He had the rare gift of clairvoyance, and James has another flash about a boxing match in the near future, and he writes it down, expecting it to be a way for him to earn some money. We then see him heading to a bar where he meets Mick and collects the money he'd won from betting. James offers Mick another bet he is sure of, but Mick refuses. On his way back, he happens upon two men attacking a woman. Knowing what was about to come, James gets involved and tries to help her, but gets beaten up. The two assailants run away, but one of them leaves his wallet, which James takes. James then makes sure the woman, Angela, is okay after the attack. While he introduces himself, he gets a flash of Angela and him laughing and flirting in his apartment. As James and Angela converse, Sal and his buddy drive by and stop to talk to him. Sal tells James that Ray wants to talk to him and that he has to come with him. James then says goodbye to Angela and heads out with Sal and his friend. James meets Ray in a warehouse, and after exchanging pleasantries, Ray makes James a proposition. He opens his safe and shows James $10 million worth of diamonds. Ray tells him that he's been acquainted with people from Zimbabwe that had stolen from some people in Angola. He then asks James to find a safe passage for the diamonds using his clairvoyant skills and offers him $100,000 for the job. He agrees to complete the job after asking for $2,000 up front, and Ray tells James that the deal has to be done in a few days and that he doesn't want to go back on his word. After taking his payment and the diamonds, James goes back to his apartment. While drinking, he hears a knock on his door and opens it assuming it was his landlord, but it turns out to be Angela. She offers him some beer and he invites her in. Outside James's apartment, Sal and Terry plot to steal the bag of diamonds from James. Sal tells Terry to get inside and to take the bag, but to not hurt James. In his apartment, James was relaxing on his couch smoking while Angela takes a shower. Suddenly he starts getting a series of flashes which he writes down on his wall. In one of his visions, he sees himself covered in blood and on the floor. James hears Terry making his way into his house, so he hurries to get Angela from the shower. As Terry bangs on the door, James takes Angela and escapes through the bathroom window. Sal and Terry try to pursue them, but James and Angela make it to her car and escape. Angela, scared of what she just witnessed, asks him what happened. James checks the diamonds and makes sure that they're okay, and after having another flash, James tells Angela that a policeman would approach them and suggest that they cool their engine, which happens a few minutes later. Shocked, Angela asks him how he knew that the man would say that, so James explains his ability. He tells her that his recent vision was of him getting shot, and James and Angela head toward a nearby motel for the night. While inside, James puts the diamonds in the motel safe. They then head out to a close diner to grab some dinner, where Angela asks James more about his gift. He tells her that he first experienced his gift when he was 7, when he experienced his mother's car accident 2 months prior to it happening. He tells her that he didn't understand what it was, but he did in fact draw everything before the accident took place. After dinner, they head back to their motel but find the door open and the diamonds in the safe gone. Shocked, James tells Angela that they're not safe there and they drive away. He then leads Angela toward the home of his foster father, Elliot. Elliot takes them in and asks them what happened, and James tells him that he saw his death and that he has no choice but to work with Ray. Elliot's upset by this and asks where he thinks everything is going to go down, and James surprises Elliot by telling him that it's going to happen in his house. Elliot goes through James's old drawings and tells him that James had always seen how his death would happen. Elliot tells him that he could leave and change his future, but James is convinced that his future is unchangeable. Outside, they hear someone banging at the door, and Elliot opens the door to find Ray and two of his henchmen. Ray was angry, thinking that James was trying to steal the diamonds and run away. James tries to explain that the diamonds were stolen, but Ray does not believe a word he was saying. Terry starts beating James to get the truth out of him, while Angela cries for them to let him go. Ray is scared that the loss of the diamonds would not only cause James's death, but also his own. He asks James to reveal where he has hidden the diamonds, but James is adamant that he hasn't stolen them, and Angela corroborates his story. Ray has his henchmen take James and Elliot to the closet so that Ray can speak to Angela in private. Ray and the others start hearing sounds coming from the outside and become really erratic, thinking that they're trapped. Angela tries to stab Ray in hopes of escaping, but gets shot in the chest. Seeing what happened to Angela, James is utterly shocked, and before he was able to do anything, Elliot injects him on the neck with a clear liquid. As James was fading out of consciousness, Elliot apologizes for what he just did and wishes that he had time to explain his actions. And James wakes up on the floor of the closet with the needle still jammed in his neck. He gets it out and starts looking around the house for everyone, but he was only able to find the younger version of Elliot working on his computer. After making James settle down on the couch, Elliot asks him where he found the needle, and James explains how Elliot had stabbed him in the neck with it. Elliot explains to James that the serum in the needle was a time travel agent, and he tells him of the research he and his team were doing and how they were working on time travel and finally made it a reality. Suddenly, the younger version of James appears and tells Elliot that he can't sleep. James is utterly shocked at the sight of his younger self. Elliot tucks young James into bed, who recognizes himself from his dreams. Elliot then goes outside to speak to James and informs him that the reason why James was able to predict the future was because he had the ability to time travel, but he just didn't know at the time. As they talk, James realizes that although things are fated to happen, the fact that Angela had entered his life had changed his death. He tells Elliot that he has to go back and change his past before he gets her killed again. Elliot gives the serum to James and tells him to focus on where and when he wants to go. James then wakes up in the middle of the road in his original timeline. He heads toward the apartment where he encounters his landlord while avoiding his other self. After making him pay in advance on his rent, his landlord lets him go, and James makes his way into his apartment through the window. As he tries to get his bag from the counter, he slips and drops the keys, which his other self hears. He watches as the other James goes through everything he had, and as he escapes, Terry and Sal come after him. He hides behind a dumpster while he yells at Sal to explain what he was doing. Sal tries to calm him down by telling him that Ray had a change of plans. Disbelieving him, James injects himself with another dose of the serum and time travels to the time where he and Angela were having dinner. He heads to the motel but gets ambushed by Sal and Terry. He then realizes that Sal and Terry were actually double-crossing Ray. They offer him more money, but he tells them that he's only interested in saving Angela. Terry threatens to shoot James unless he opens the safe, and he opens the safe, but before neither of them could get the bag, he attacks Terry and grabs the gun and escapes. He heads to Elliot's house and tells him everything that he discovered. He explains that he's still traveling, and the moment they're living in was the past. He tells Elliot that his other version was coming there to give Ray the diamond he'd stolen from the henchman. Outside, the other version of James arrives with Angela, and a few minutes later, so does Ray and his men. The previous events that we saw unravel again, and meanwhile James was hiding in the bushes watching everything. In an attempt to save Angela, James aims his gun at Ray, but ends up getting shot himself. Angela is killed again, and Elliot injects James with the serum, starting the cycle all over again. James wakes up in a moment much earlier, before he'd met Angela or had been approached by Sal. After tending to his wounds, he heads to the first incident where he meets Angela and tries to take her away, but he's attacked by his other self, thinking that he's trying to rob her. As James falls, the needle he'd been hiding jabs him in the abdomen and sends him to a different timeline where he sees Elliot and Angela talking through the window before she gets murdered. Elliot hears sounds coming from his porch and goes to see what was happening. He finds a sickly and confused James shaking on the porch. James tells Elliot that he had tried everything, but Angela keeps dying each time. Elliot assures him that he'll try to give the diamonds to Ray and tells him to hide and to stay in the present. From his hiding place, James hears Terry walking toward him and attacks him with a shovel. And amidst the chaos, Terry's gun accidentally goes off and hits the James that was hiding in the bushes. James runs into the house trying to save Angela, but the unfortunate unraveling of events causes Ray to shoot her and James. As he dies on the floor, James reveals that Sal had tried to betray Ray. Sal becomes defensive, but Ray believes James and tries to confront him. Outside, Terry comes and shoots Ray in the head. Although upset by his cousin's death, Sal takes the diamonds and leaves with Terry. James time travels once again, but this time he was shot and weak, and he appears in Elliot's old lab. He meets a man in the lab who tries to help him, and James explains to him that he needs to find him because he's important to their research. And the movie ends as James dies and his entire life flashes in front of his eyes, but all of the choices he made managed to save the other him and Angela, who'd only been shot on the shoulder because of his sacrifice. And this is how the movie comes to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. Make sure to leave me a like, leave me a comment, and most of all, subscribe to my channel. I love you guys so much, and I promise to see you on the next one. Bye.